Baton Rouge. So it's time to get caught up on Metro Council business. Time to welcome in Jen Rocca. Jen, what's happening? Happy New Year. This is your first time in this year.
Happy New Year. Happy Wednesday.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy Wednesday, which means y'all will be meeting tonight. So for tonight's meeting, I did a story in Top Stories and Trending about tougher flood rules coming. Absolutely. And this is actually a long time coming.
It is.
So while we read the story today, it's like, oh, hey, here's news. For y'all, this has been a lot of work. There's been a lot of work put in behind the scenes.
Right. And it started with, for us as a council, the moratorium that we put in place multiple times, and then we extended it as well.
Yeah.
We were waiting to see what these rules were going to be, get these rules in place to heighten our standards and make sure that we're not mitigating our flood efforts. So
now, a lot of the things that have gone into this, have been not just the floods themselves, but the developers need to be kept in mind as well, because they're the ones investing their money. It's their property. So what's that balance been like?
So there have been conversations. I know that home builders, all sorts of groups have been talking to one another. The Federation, all of those guys are at the table. They're having conversations. And I guess the important piece is, and what people sometimes fail to recognize, is if development stops, our city is in trouble.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely huge trouble. We all need to be very, very worried. Good development moves our city forward with both sales tax revenue, but more importantly, we're in a housing crisis. We have a housing shortage in Baton Rouge. Believe it or not, all the development you see is we have a housing shortage.
I find that so weird, because there's been a housing crisis recently, like nationwide. More people are just not buying houses now because of interest rates and everything. But we've talked to realtors before who have like a 2-3 day turnaround on sales. It's sometimes even less than that. Like, you got to know somebody to get to it before it's even on the market.
And for me, in my district, there are subdivisions that have drainage issues because they've been there for 50 or 60 years. But still, even with the sewage problems, the drainage issues, you have families coming in and they're paying $250 a square foot for a 60-year-old home that hasn't been updated because they so desperately want to be in that central part of the city. Now, in District 12, you can get downtown in 10 minutes. You can get to Highlandia all the way by Turner Industries in 10 minutes.
Right.
So you're really centralized. But the reality of it is you have people that are desperately trying to get houses in this particular area, in the surrounding areas. And if you look at the census data, folks moved from the city central all the way out to Dwight Hudson and Rowdy Goday's district. And whenever you look at their area and development, it's super huge.
Which, by the way, Dwight Hudson's district is not short of possibilities of flooding as well.
Absolutely.
He's got the Amite River in his backyard.
Absolutely. But the data showed approximately 3 people a day moved in for 10 years straight.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So amazing.
There are people that are coming in, but if we want to keep, our Amazon trucks filled, our people driving, folks working, and our economy moving, we gotta have development. So we gotta have good development.
Yes. Meanwhile, I'm over there in Sherwood saying, "Oh my goodness gracious, move on in."
Right.
You want to talk about buying a 40, 50, 60-year-old home, because a lot of Sherwood was first built in the 60s, and then 70s and 80s was when it was like really on the way up. There's a lot of turnaround over there that's available right now. And if you want to talk about being 10 minutes away from everything in your district, if you hop on Florida, you're only heading 2-3 minutes to get downtown.
Right. Right. It's a really good location. So just grabbing those folks, telling them, hey, come move in. And I'm hopeful that these standards, I think the unintended consequences of these standards are going to be that the house prices are driven higher, even higher. So,
and I haven't seen the full standards yet, and I don't know, but I know enough to know that we've seen too many developments in Baton Rouge where, and the story in the Advocate writes a lot off to just, the parish has been relying on federal flood maps, which are considered out of date because climate change has intensified weather events. Okay, that's easy to write, but the way we've developed in such a piecemeal way in Baton Rouge, and you just clear an entire lot, get rid of all the trees, get rid of everything, and then you start from scratch to build up. Well, when you're doing that, you're basically giving rainwater an on-ramp to just go faster.
Just rolling right
There's
off.
been no smart growth there. The more trees you can keep, the more that's going to suck up water that hits the ground.
Green space.
Right.
I had a whole slew of folks come in right whenever I was appointed and then later elected, angry as could be about a new development that we were having in my district. Well, it was zoned for a 7-story commercial building, and we downzoned, so it could still be apartments, but the maximum height was 4 stories. But we created a ton more green space. But they just couldn't understand or didn't want to understand that it was a downzoning, and the green space that was created by moving that project to a different type of zoning created less runoff in the area. So it's just having that understanding. The other thing that I think people need to realize in HOAs, hey, our HOAs, wake up this morning if you're listening. If you have a retention pond in your subdivision, it needs to be dredged and cleared just like any other waterway.
Okay.
Those retention ponds were put there for a reason. And if you have a 30, 40-year-old retention pond that has no attention has been shown whatsoever, well, it's just like our waterways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there for a purpose.
Yeah. And whose responsibility is that, by the way? Just as a
so
quick...
it's not the city's responsibility. It's your HOA. It's your subdivision. So it's just interesting, just fun facts that I've learned through the planning and development stages of council. So, but I do think they're really good changes. I think we're going to see some great things going on with development, but I'm afraid of some of the unintended consequences that are going to be heightened costs, where we already have a housing market where where costs are crazy expensive. But hey, go buy those older homes and redo them.
That's what I'm saying.
I encourage people,
I'm more than happy to be somebody's neighbor. Like, let's
turn
get
on
this
an
rolling.
HGTV, flip that house.
I mean,
Chip and Diana.
Should we move into a space where there's film tax credits available for that as well?
Right.
All right. While we're talking about the rain and storm water, story at the Daily Report yesterday. The headline reads, the state gives EBR until September to submit stormwater management plan. State regulators have given East Baton Rouge Parish until September 15th to submit a draft stormwater management plan, which originally was due, I believe, today. So in a letter dated January 12th, Assistant Secretary Bliss Higgins with the Department of Environmental Quality responded to EBR's December request for the extension. So now September 15th is what we're looking at here. That feels like plenty of time to actually get something like...
Think of all the things that go in with that. We now have a September date. So not only do we have all that time to start being proactive about what we're doing with our plan, we also have the following year's budget. We approved budget later in the year, so everyone has an ample opportunity to reallocate funds or move funds around within the budget to make sure that we're right where we need to be come that September date.
So while September is the 9th month of the year, this is really a 1-year mulligan.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically the way this is going to play out. How much has been continued with this conversation since the whole debacle late last year?
So that part for me is incredibly frustrating because I believe the conversation ceased after folks were removed from the parish attorney's office and the mayor's office. Seemingly conversations have stopped, and we had agenda items right before Christmas that were completely removed from the agenda. No conversations were had. So we were provided 4,000 documents or thousands of documents. Let me just be less specific. Thousands of documents that I know only a handful of council people have gone to review, and they haven't gotten through all of them. To speak for myself, I've tried to review them, but it has to be at the parish attorney's office in front of their computer to see the unredacted documents.
Why is that?
You tell me. Get an expert in here. They can tell me about attorney-client privilege and how and why I, as a client of the parish attorney, cannot view these documents.
Well, it feels like it's making it less convenient for the Metro Council members who, oh, by the way, have full-time jobs.
Right. I know.
I would think viewing things at your convenience would be not just your convenience, but the convenience of all 12 members of the Metro Council. Let's make this more open, more transparent at any hour of the day. We have the technology.
For sure. Or give me a jump drive and let me go. If I violate the privilege and give it to the news media or give it to reporters, then I think that's my privilege to violate. Now, I wouldn't do that because I'm an attorney and I am held to an ethical standard. So I absolutely would not do that. But the reality of it is to work and be effective, we can't play hide the ball with this information. Right. We need to be able to look at it. And I don't think we've received the answers. We don't have answers. There were a lot of knee-jerk reactions and people being removed and people being retiring early. But the reality of it is, what problems did that solve? What is the solution there other than, which makes me crazy, pacifying the public?
So, and the pacification only lasts so long. Because when it comes around to it, y'all are going to come around, not y'all particularly with the Metro Council, but the mayor's office might have to as well, or instead of y'all, going to come around looking for more money. There will be a fee attached to this at some point.
Potentially, yes. But the reality, for the life of me, and my term has been this way, I've been pretty blunt. And I have ran like I'm not running again.
Why do you think I call on you so much?
Yeah, so
I love the bluntness.
I'm just running like that has been my. I don't have to be in this role. You know, I have other things that I can go and do. Believe me. Mm-hmm. But I believe to truly serve the public, you do the right thing and you run like you're not running again. You say the things that are honest and true, and then you let the chips fall where they may.
Well, that's why you ran in the first place. You didn't run in the first place to run again. You ran in the first place to do something.
Right. So where we are, if how are we sitting here and okay with going through these big songs and dance, going on television, making a big show of this, and now we've just let it go in the wind. Mm-hmm. Nobody's
until the 11th hour again.
Right.
So what's the likelihood we see it play out that way? I mean, it's.
So I do believe that the mayor's office is doing what they need to do to get where they need to be. I do believe that that is happening. I believe they're working and they're being diligent to get to where they need to be. But we don't have the answers that we wanted. We don't have an explanation as to how and why these things came up. And you remember, not to throw my other council members under the bus, but you remember there were only 2 council members that voted against the district. Remember, we had the utility district. There were only 2 of us that said, no, there's something wrong here. So if you're looking at that, absent of going into that executive session that people still don't have all the information about, where will we be right now?
With the district, it was voted to keep the district around, just in case it needs to be utilized in a different way later.
It went back and forth, and Lori Adams put on the agenda to have that district removed, to delete the formation of the district. So that's still something that hasn't come up. She deleted her agenda item. I don't know where we're going to go with that, but that's the case.
We got about a minute and a half left. What is, in this last minute and a half, your biggest goal as a Metro Council person for 2023?
So my biggest goal is I have a crime committee that's coming up. I was asked by some business leaders and some leaders in the community to be one of their partners with my crime committee to find some effective solutions to crime. And whatever those solutions may be, whether it's a reallocation of money that we have, whether it's transparency as to where that money is being spent, or whether it's looking as a council and saying, hey, we control the purse. We're going to give you some more dollars at the end of this year through the budget process, whatever the case may be. But we're trying to do an evaluation as to how and why we have the crime rate that we do and what are effective solutions moving forward.
How much sway do y'all have over that other than the allocation of money?
So, well, think about the allocation of money. We approve programs all day, every day.
Yeah.
So
But the oversight of the effectiveness of those programs, doesn't that kind of leave y'all's hands?
Potentially, until you take the money away, or until you're asking questions. Hey, what's happening? What's going on with this?
Okay.
Plus, there are business leaders that I think have a very strong opinion, very strong voice here in the city of Baton Rouge that are banded together to try to find and effect change.
So I like the idea, if for no other reason than it's something we haven't really done yet. Everybody's kind of, like the question I asked, everybody kind of stays in their lane, like not my job sort of thing. Right. And we just complain about it rather than seek new solutions. This would be seeking new solutions.
Absolutely. And the partners that have spoken and reached out to me, they have a lot of people at the table, both in the public and private sector. So for the first time in my experience as a council person, we will all be sitting together having conversations about what's working and what's not working.
And we have seen incredible buy-in on the public level for wanting to have a hand in curbing the crime rate where it's at, or curbing the crime rate where it's gone to. So this is going to be an interesting year to watch all this play out.
I really hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. She is Metro Councilwoman Jen Rocca. We always appreciate the time. Thank you so much for coming in.